Well, I hope by the end of this episode, we all are able to call her Jo, which is what all of her friends call her. But today's guest is JoAnna Garcia Swisher.
We are so excited to have her on the show today. You guys know her from her hit show on Netflix, Sweet Magnolias, and the other things she does in the world. I mean, she just exudes kindness. She has a home line, she has a foundation. She is just a lovely, lovely person, and we're excited to get to talk to her today.
We're so excited for you to be here. There's like so many different topics that we are excited to go down for
I
this.
can't wait. I'm ready. I'm ready for you.
Well, it's like in terms of like where to start, it's like why don't we start with Sweet Magnolias? It's like that
Okay.
is, it's an incredible series. We're two huge fans. It's such a sweet series.
We
Thank
so
you.
want to be in your girl circle. Like,
We
how
want
can we get
margaritas.
guest spots and sit around the island? We love it. It's such a great show, and just, oh my god, I don't even know where to start. The family, the girlfriends, the support, it's all there.
It's like, how did
Thank
this
you.
project come to you?
It kind of came to me overnight. It was really at a time where I was kind of, I had been working so much, but I hadn't really done anything or worked on anything in a minute that, had really any legs or was really just fulfilling me and checking all of those boxes. And I I kind of was like, maybe I'm going to take a break. Maybe I need a break. Maybe I just need to like be a mom and just like take a deep breath and really look for the next project that um really excited me. And so I swear it was probably a week later I got the offer to do this show. And it was kind of one of those things where it was like you have to read these scripts, make this decision pretty quickly, shooting in Georgia. And then I just talked to my team about it. I remember, everybody seemed really excited about it. My publicists were, talking to me just about how important these type of shows were to Netflix because I'd never really worked for Netflix. So I was just kind of getting my feet wet. Like I was trying to make like a really well-rounded decision, not just kind of choose something based on, being excited to do it. And I got on a plane and I packed my family up in like 3 days and I started this journey. And it's been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my career and continues to be so fulfilling. And it's just the gift that keeps on giving.
Did you know anyone from the team or any of the other actors before you guys all came together? Because it seems so natural.
Yeah, I worked with Chris Klein before on a
Okay.
show right before I did Privileged, actually. We did a really short-lived series called Welcome to the Captain, and I loved him. And then Norman Buckley, who is our producing director, he and I became super, super close. He directed Privileged and Gossip Girl, and we just have known each other through the years. But I also got on the phone with Cheryl Anderson, who is our showrunner, head writer, and the visionary behind the show. And once I spoke to her, I just was, I was in.
It's a sweet show because I think that it's a rare unicorn, I feel like, because I think when you look at the content that's out there these days, there's a lot of dysfunction, there's a lot of, a lot of mess. And I feel like this kind of brings back, yes, there's mess, but there's also value, family
Yeah.
values. And it's such an incredible series that it's a feel good, where it's friendship, it's love, it's marriage, and it doesn't hide any of the messiness of life, but it shows how you can kind of rise above it, like a hope floats type of feel to it in some ways.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. I mean, honestly, right now it feels like in my life, I really just want to do things that are relatable and kind of tug at the heartstrings a little bit. And that just seems to be what I'm drawn to at the moment. And I feel like this show really does kind of make you feel a little less alone, and it's aspirational in many ways, and that these women are so in each other's corners, but it's also really real and rooted in life and real life experiences and things that are not always easy, and touching on faith and friendship and family and motherhood, and being a wife. I know Maddie's kind of really gone through the ringer in a lot of ways. So I feel like we don't shy away from any of it, but there is a real hopeful tone to the show that I feel really proud of.
No, it's amazing, and that balance, and I'd love to know, how that creative process comes about in the show, because to balance the faith and the family, and there's still a little steaminess. Maddie gets a little steamy sometimes, but that balance is so rare. Is that the whole team? Is that the writing? How does that keep manifesting?
I think that it's obviously led by Cheryl Anderson and our incredible writers. She has this unbelievable ability to create a world. And she has so much heart. And I think she's surrounding herself, like our writing staff is so brilliant and wonderful. And like, they really have that same vision and that mission. But I think Netflix has also been a big driving force. The show is really unique to Netflix. And I think that they really value it in that way. And so I do think that, in sort of in terms of like that collaborative and the development and writing side and behind the camera, it's all there. And then obviously you have all of us who you feel when you walk onto our set, you feel this like sense of gratitude and this sense of understanding that we are doing a show that really, hopes to inspire hope and friendship and all of that. So the values really carry over into the experience. And I think it also carries over into the final product. And yeah, we have a little steam too. You can't have Justin Bruning on your show and not have him like maybe take his shirt off a couple of times.
Yeah, going back to that baseball, yes.
Yeah.
So you just to kind of back up, it's like you started in hometown theater and then you started working with Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
And that kind of started you.
Did you
Yeah.
always want to be an actor?
I don't know that so my little one who's 6, she's like she asks about it. She's very intrigued by this whole thing. I didn't grow up like that, but I did start at a relatively young age. I started in just like a local theater company, mostly just as an after school kind of idea, like maybe we'll do this after school and maybe we'll do some plays. And then I was sort of bitten by the bug, if you will. And at that time in Florida, you could be represented by multiple agents. And so they came and I had a showcase, and there was so much going on in Orlando and, Universal Studios with Nickelodeon. And then we also had Disney, and we just had a lot going on here. So there was just a lot of opportunity right in my backyard, essentially. And my mom was a huge driving force behind all of it. She, saw how much I loved it, saw the sacrifice that I was willing to make to continue to do it. My dad was a little bit more adamant about me being in school and maintaining some sense of normalcy. There was no moving out to LA until I was out of high school. In fact, I went to a year and a half of college, and then I moved out to LA and never looked back. But yeah, it sort of naturally progressed, but I was really lucky by the time I moved to California that I, had spent a lot of years on Nickelodeon. I had some amazing opportunities under my belt and had a lot of like really wonderful people, rooting for me out there. So it wasn't like I was flying blindly to Los Angeles, but it was a big step.
In terms of, it's like you were on you were afraid of the dark.
Are you afraid of the dark?
Yeah. Are you afraid of the dark?
Yeah.
And of course it explains it all. It's like, this is like my generation growing
yeah.
up. Like,
yes. Me too.
Like freaks and geeks. Like,
oh yeah.
It's like, you've definitely, you've had a lot of different types of experiences. It's like, have you found the industry has changed? It's like, you're in a very different place, and the industry's in a different place. Like, how has that matured for you?
I think that right now, I feel like we're in a huge transition. I think, in the last few years with streaming and then, COVID, and then all these streamings, different streaming channels have kind of popped up, and there's so much content out there. And I think COVID also really kind of affected things in that, people weren't necessarily going to movies. So they were trying to figure out different ways to release those type of blockbusters, if you will. Like anything, I feel like I try not to dwell too much on how things have changed, because I have been so lucky throughout the years. it's all about kind of pivoting and adapting, and things are a little bit different. There was a real rhythm to, especially I was a television actress for the most part, or I am a television actress for the most part. And so there was a real rhythm to network television. There was like a pilot, and then there was upfronts when you got picked up, and then you had sort of a thing. And especially being on Reba for most of my 20s, I had a real set schedule that was very normal and very, that's like the dream job that you have when you have small children at home. You go to work for a few hours, you come home, and you're making people laugh, and it's just like a great experience. So things have changed so much, but I think that's like anything, you kind of got to grow and mold to what's happening now. And I feel really lucky that I still get to do it.
How was it working with Reba? I love her, and I want she's gotta be as lovely in person as
Yeah.
she portrays. She's always so great. Was that fun?
I mean, she's like a mother to me. And yes, was it fun? It was more than that. It was everything. My parents were so grateful that I had that experience with so many incredible people. I'm getting emotional just talking about it, but it was a real family that cared about you. And especially at being in my early 20s on a television show, my parents were very happy that I had someone that was looking after me, and a whole family that was. I mean, my dad on Reba married Nick and I, and Reba and Melissa Peterman, who played Barbara Jean, they were in my wedding. They were some of my bridesmaids. And to this day, they're just a huge, important, integral part of my life. And I'm so grateful for them. And Reba's she's a unicorn. She really is. She's just so talented, and talk about adaptable and a survivor.
Right.
Yeah.
This woman is just incredible and never ever loses that sense of wonder and hard, work. Her work ethic is on another level. And she's so hopeful, and like, she's always reinventing herself. She's durable. She's everything that you want to be as a woman in life. A wonderful mother, a great friend, a wonderful coworker, so talented. And I say this a lot because people ask me so often what it's like to work with her, and I can't say enough about her.
Oh, that's so refreshing. It's like, that's
Yeah.
so sweet in terms of like, being able to have that type of mentor and to have that type of influence in your life. It's like, that's so special.
Yeah, it is. It's really special. I don't take it for granted, and I'm super grateful for it.
It's like, I would say a lot of the adjectives that you describe, I think that's how a lot of people view you. It's like, in terms of the parts that you have, it's like, you're constantly inspiring. It's like your work with the Happy Place. I've sent my girlfriends some wine boxes that I copied off of your website.
Yeah, I love
COVID.
that. Oh my God.
It's like you're constantly giving back. You're constantly inspiring, through, the Swisher Family Foundation and all of your charitable giving. It's, you're constantly giving back to the world, and that gratitude definitely comes through.
Well, thank you for saying
How important is that for you to balance? I mean, what you're talking about, you're such a busy working actor, a mom, a wife, and yet it's evident that that's really important to you, that your philanthropy and those outside projects are just as important.
I was raised with the idea of giving back and philanthropy and finding something that you really believe in and want to fight for. I was raised with those values. But I also married a man that had that exact same vision for what life would look like. And especially as we're shaping and molding our family life with our young girls, it's certainly extremely important. And it's really just about connecting with people. And I don't ever pose it to my daughters as, look how fortunate you are. You're so much luckier than we all experience our different trials and tribulations in our lives. And I really look at it as an opportunity to connect and to learn. And sometimes that means you're learning that some people are really struggling with different illnesses or different circumstances. And I think that awareness and that compassion, and having that sense of empathy and just desire to connect is is really what drives us, because it's the most important thing in life. I mean, we've been very blessed in our careers, and we've also gotten to experience unique careers. But because of that, we've been able to connect with a lot of different people. So we really look at it like that, and an opportunity to show our girls that there are so many different circumstances and different situations. And yes, some of them are really hard to wrap your head around, but that you kind of have to lean in, and that's what being, a good citizen and a good neighbor and a good person really means, is about taking the time to connect and to learn and
It's
listen.
a lot of what, it's like a lot of what I've seen you do, it's like a lot of it is the happy place, and it's like, what inspired you to create that? It's like that kind of seemed like a big stepping stone for you to really talk about connection with family and friends and the importance of relationships and gratitude. And, that's a big driver of intention for
Yeah.
you.
The happy place has taken on so many different, it's almost been like this healing thing in my life. And when it started, it was, I felt like I had to have this sort of design focus, because I thought, why would anybody want to hear from my inner musings? Like, like, what makes those so interesting? And then as I got over myself a little bit and gave myself a little bit more of an opportunity to breathe into it, I started to share a little bit more on a personal level, but it was so genuine. I wasn't really ever thinking, what do you think people, I don't like look at analytics. And in fact, we just hired someone to help us with our Instagram, to help post and stuff, because it's been a lot. So and she was like, let's look at your analytics. I was like, what are we looking at here? And then I was surprised that there was some younger people following me. I'm like, oh my God, these people aren't mothers. Like, okay, like, let's talk about sex toys or something. I don't know. And then I was like, wait a minute, hold on, stop. Just like back up, Jo. Let's just get back to the basics. I mean, I think that it's taken on, it's really been my diary, if you will, things that I'm interested in. If I'm really talking a lot about sunscreen in my life, you're going to get a sunscreen story, things that are just happening in my world. And my journey through grief has really changed the course of the happy place. And it was something my parents were both really proud of. So I just feel really lucky that I get to continue to do it. And I have this amazing business partner who's my best friend, and we have this vision for it. And now, with Clover by Jo, as an arm of the happy place, we're able to have these tangible goods that feels like a really big dream come true. And, but who knows, the journey continues, and I just enjoy it, and I'm grateful for it. So grateful for it.
Have you always been interested in design, especially with
Yeah.
Clover?
Yeah, I have. I went to school for it. That was sort of my thing. And I wanted to do something that didn't have anything to do with drama or anything to do with my chosen profession. And I am passionate about it. I love it. I've designed every single home I've ever lived in. I've massively renovated and built the last 4. So, yeah, I actually feel like I have to take a break, because
I was like, how long do you stay in them after you finish them? Or are you
yeah,
just like jonesing for another project?
I kind of am jonesing for another project, but not one that is like my personal project.
Okay.
I feel like I would love to just do like some smaller homes that I don't have to live in, that I could like make really fun and like try out some fun trends or whatever. But I have a great day. I have 4 dogs right now. Our pool's getting done and it's mud out there. So every day I'm like, why did I do this? So I'm hitting a wall, if you will, with our personal home renovations, but our house is almost done. So I'm really excited about it.
And when it's finished, you'll start another. I don't
I know. I know. My husband's like, I just am waiting for that other, hey, so I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you find, it's like, obviously you live in Florida, but are you happy that you're not in LA, especially with, your girls and raising them? Do you find that there is like that difference or keeping them kind of out of the LA type Hollywood scene?
I don't know really how I can only answer that in that I'm really happy that we're here now. I mean, after
Yeah.
losing my dad right before COVID and then my mom, I lost her shortly after that. I really wanted to be close to her and close to my brother and my
Yeah.
in-laws.
Mhm.
So family was just so important.
Yeah.
My kids go to the most amazing school that I went to as a kid and my brother and I went to, and I just can't say enough about their philosophy. And I feel like my kids are going to be so much better off for having this incredibly, the depth of, the education is incredible, but the social
Yeah.
emotional intelligence and all of the ways that they teach, really model being a good person. I just feel so proud that they get an opportunity to experience that. It's really close to Georgia, which is where I'm shooting Sweet Magnolias, and we've been working. So it's also in the backyard of the Yankees, and my husband works for the Yankees. So
Yeah.
it's like it feels like it's just the right place for us.
Yeah.
So
It's
that I
amazing it
think it,
worked out that way. It
yeah,
really is. That's
yeah,
kind of like a perfect confluence of
it's meant to
factors.
be. Yeah, absolutely. I have an amazing support system that has nothing to do with the entertainment industry. Here, my friends do all different types of jobs, and so it's certainly not focused on entertainment.
Yeah.
But my best friends are actresses, and they live all over the country, and they're all dispersed, and we're used to just getting booking our girls trips and making time for our families to get together at different cities. So it's like it's just we're all kind of um taking a break, I think, if you will. Most of us are, but I love LA. I love LA. I love the energy of it. I have such great memories there. I don't think that I won't live. There's a definitely will be a time where I will be back.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I think so. I just don't know when that is.
Or like down the road when I see a house I want to
Yeah.
design.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
I was just thinking about what you're talking about, the happy place and you seem to be very comfortable with being open and it comes across, I mean, almost very brave that a lot of your personal experiences and what you're doing, you're willing to put out there, and whether it's with your projects or like you said, what you happen to be talking about that day or your design, is that something that comes natural? Did you have to learn that? But you seem very comfortable in your vulnerability, I guess.
Well, I feel like I have probably been an overshare for my whole life.
Maybe
Um
that's natural for an actor.
yeah. I just have really no like desire anymore in my life to not have deeply meaningful interactions and relationships with people. And so that's something that is really important to me. And the Happy Place audience is incredibly connected and supportive. And um, I think that that's why people show up for that, is that, that kind of no BS. I'm not trying to have it all together. Nothing's Pinterest perfect. I'm not a chef, but I share recipes.
Right.
I saw the
I
chili this morning.
Oh
Yeah,
my
we
gosh,
were hungry for your chili this morning.
it's so good. So good. Actually, I think I might make it tonight. I was thinking about that. I'm like, "Ooh, is it a chilly night?" But it's 80 degrees outside.
Perfect weather.
Yeah, yeah. So, I do feel comfortable being honest and open and genuine. And if that is a little probably too much for some people, then that's okay too. I don't know. I just I this is I do feel comfortable in that. And I don't have any desire for people to like, I don't need to hide anything away from my experience and of life. And honestly, if it helps, like, or if it connects with one person or makes one person feel
Yeah.
like they are experiencing the same thing or they're not alone, then I'm okay with that.
Our audiences across the board are a lot of creatives that are coming up in the industry, and they're folks that, whether they're directors or producers or actresses, there have been, and I'm assuming that you've had some bumps in the road in terms of when you've had self-doubt or a project didn't quite work out. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you overcame that?
Um, yeah, I mean, listen, my husband laughed because he was like, "You're so cynical," when we first started dating. Because every pilot that I did or anything that I did, if I did a show that made it on air, he's like, it's going to go to syndication 10 years, 15 years, no doubt about it. Biggest show on television, whatever. And I was like, Nick, it doesn't work like that. There's so much, so many variables, and you can have the best show in the world and it just not cut through or whatever. So disappointment is a huge part of our business. There's a lot of decision makers, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of money riding on success. I think timing is everything. I think Reba, I remember, when I first started Reba, someone described it as kind of lightning in a bottle. It's, just that nice mix, that right mix of people in the right moment, what people were looking for, and all of that kind of worked. And I knew that wasn't going to be with everything, even though you hope for that. So I guess, just used to being disappointed. I've had some heartbreakers. Privilege was a really tough one for me. I was so proud of that show. It was at a really unique time in my life. I loved doing it. Rena Mamoon, who ran the show, head writer of our show, she was, someone I love dearly.
Yeah.
And would do anything for and with. Yeah. Thank you.
It was such a great influence of like just storyline, a little bit of love, a little
yeah,
the
it was
girls on
fun.
it. It's like Lucy Hale had to have been like, how old was she on that? She had to have been
She
what,
was
like 10 or 11 at that?
No,
I feel like
she was
so
turning 18. I know.
really?
I still call her my little peanut, even
Oh
though
my
she's this
gosh.
like beautiful
like
grown adult now.
I feel like she was so young, or she just always looks young.
She's perma young, which
Yeah,
amen to
like looks
that. She's so
fabulous.
beautiful. Yeah, watching her career has been such a joy. But I sound like an old lady, but it really is. I love her so much. I love her so much. But yeah, I mean, there's also those moments of like, I think also getting out of LA a little bit has helped, that where it's like, there are these shows that are really celebrated, and these massive like Game of Thrones and all of these shows, and there are those moments where you're like, damn, and not to say that that Sweet Magnolias hasn't been celebrated, or, Reba wasn't celebrated and stuff like that. But like those massive successes where you're like, God, I want to be like on a Succession or something like that.
Yeah.
Where then I'm like, oh my God, get over yourself. You're doing a job that you love. And I have great people that I'm working with. And I've had to remind myself through the years. Now, Sweet Magnolias has been incredibly creatively fulfilling. And so I don't really have those feelings at the moment. I'm like, oh, this is great. It's checking all the boxes. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's easy to compare. But the one thing I love about our business is that, there's always time to have those opportunities and, have a resurgence, or have someone asked me the other day, like, it seems like you've reemerged. And I was like, really, I never went anywhere. I didn't stop working, but I just didn't do anything that you saw. You know what I mean? Like everything just didn't make it. But and that's kind of where I was at that moment right before Sweet Magnolias, where I was like, it's just kind of bummed, and, but, like, look at Jennifer Coolidge right now, who there's never been a moment that Jennifer Coolidge hasn't been epically amazing. I mean,
like in something that's affected, it's in the cultural zeitgeist somewhere. It has been. She's been working like she's having such a moment.
Such a moment. And that is like, I could cry for her because I love her. And I think she's just a wonderful person. And so it's so wonderful when you see someone experience that you admire and love so much. But also, like, she's always been this like delicious, delectable powerhouse of a woman and actor, and she's just amazing. So that's the other beautiful part of our business, the ebbs and the flows and the journey, and you just kind of have to hang tough and I'm looking at my publicist name right here. She's on this, she's listening in, and I'm like, we talk about this a lot because we've been together through so much. And you're just like, oh my God, your team is everything. You know, you're like,
Yeah.
so the wins are so big when they're wins, because like sometimes it's really hard.
You know, it's like we were talking because I was actually telling Gretchen like 2 weeks ago, I saw Heather Headley at Carnegie Hall,
Oh
and
my God, I'm
I
so
was
jealous.
watching her at
Oh,
Carnegie Hall, and I like it didn't like I was just going. I hadn't even checked who was singing that night, like because I just have like I have like a subscription to the Pops, and she walked out. I'm like, she looks familiar, and then I'm like going through it, and like she brought down the house, and I was like,
Uh,
I can only fathom
oh my
the
God.
conversations you guys have on set because you have all such incredible talent.
oh,
And I
that's
showed
so
her a
nice.
video because I videoed her. It's like
I
not a
was
lot of
telling
women
you.
can handle Whitney Houston
Yeah,
on stage.
she was amazing. I mean, literally
She's
people were standing up cheering.
she's a goddess. And so I was supposed to go to that. I was so bummed that I couldn't. But our showrunner went, Cheryl Anderson, and she went with her family, and some of our crew went. I truly, actually, I don't feel jealous very often, but I was really jealous.
It
I was
was
like, this
it
is
was like a
sucks.
mind-blowing night. I've gone to these
Yeah.
for years and I haven't seen a person get this many, and I'm not saying this in a mean way, but octogenarians out of their seat and dancing to Whitney Houston in the middle of Carnegie Hall.
She
Like
is,
it was insane.
I do believe we were separated at birth. I know that seems like crazy because she was born in Trinidad and I'm like just like a, half white, half Cuban girl from Florida, but we were definitely soul sisters in every way. I love her
Incredible.
so much. She's so extraordinary. I was laughing. So she sings on our show this coming season. And I almost like vomited when I heard it because it was so like it felt like it like cut me in the throat. I was like, oh, and it's so beautiful. The scene is so incredible where she sings, and we're like, I don't want to say too much about what the scene is, but and after 12 hours of hearing it, the tears dry up, and like then Heather and I are like, geez, when are we getting out of here? But I looked at her at one point, like the song goes, she's not on camera, and I was like, did they auto tune you? And she looked at me and she was like, what? And I was like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I was like, they used your voice to make the auto tune app or what? I don't know how that technology was created, but it certainly had something to do with your voice. I was dying laughing. She's like, you're such a jerk, because her voice is
It's incredible.
yeah.
At one point she went acoustic, like, or she just went off of microphone and she just like listened to the acoustics in Carnegie Hall for like, it was mind blowing. It was just like,
I'm so excited she sings on the show because then after I looked at that, Renee showed it to me. I was like, wait, I need to go back to see if she's ever does she sing? But that's so exciting that she's going to.
Yeah, I make her sing happy birthday to me every year too,
oh,
because
that's
I just
amazing.
feel like she should, right? That's a nice
Yeah.
thing to do
It's
for
like,
your
I think that's
friends.
I think that's a valid
Yeah.
ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Valid ask. She should lead the charge.
Yes, absolutely. And then Brooke Elliott also sings beautifully. She was on Broadway. And so the two of them, and then you have Foghorn Leghorn over here, who just like, my voice doesn't even sound like I would have a good singing voice. Like I just don't. So we just all laugh about, and I sing probably more than any of them, but that's
those margaritas. Get it going.
and I also eat so much. I actually have a really bad reputation at work. At one point, I think in one of our outtakes in our gag reel this year, Brooke was like, I can't even hear myself think the way you're crunching on those chips. I don't even think I was on camera. I was like, oh, my bad. But I'm usually very hungry by the time we get to margarita nights, and the chips and salsa and guacamole. It's like our chefs on the show are so incredible. They will come up with all these different recipes and different types of margarita recipes. So I look forward to those scenes for a lot of reasons.
It's like
I'm jealous. It's real guacamole and chips.
It's real guacamole. I mean, the
think you really eat
salsa.
these.
Oh, I go for it. Just actually, if you have time, just go back to the margarita nights in every episode, and you will inevitably see me crushing, and not in a not great and not a very cute way, but I do.
Oh, that's so funny.
So when you're talking about the other women on the show, and obviously what you said about Reba and that those friendships and that mentorship you've had, what how do you feel your responsibility in that with the young women and men on the show, the young kids that you have, or not just on Sweet Magnolias, but on other things that you're being that person to others coming up now?
I take a lot of pride in that responsibility, and I don't shy away from that at all. I've experienced a lot of different things, and you witness a lot of different things and different types of behaviors and maybe some quirks. And, we're all creative people. So everyone has their different unique way of working. And so you give a lot of grace to a certain extent, but then there's sometimes where you're like, okay, you got to show up to work on time, right? Like that just is like a basic thing. I'm not saying the kids on Sweet Magnolias do that. They're all incredible, but I don't think there's a real handbook for, especially when you're shooting a television show, you have a lot of work to do in a little bit amount of time. And there's a huge crew that is there 10 times more than you, generally speaking. And so there's this sort of ecosystem that you have to fit into. And so I think those are the moments where you're like, okay, being on time, giving yourself the time and space to be creative and get the performance, because ultimately that is like super important. But also we're all people, we all have families. We all are working really hard. And so it's not just about us in front of the camera. So I think that, try to lead by example, and when those moments happen, that, they need a little extra TLC, or maybe a shoulder to cry on, or maybe some advice or thoughts or feedback. I feel really responsible to do that. But the kids on Sweet Magnolias, they're not even kids. They're actually now most of them over 18. They're incredible and just so smart and so professional, and just, I love them.
They're amazing.
They're not kids anymore.
Yeah, so talented.
He's so talented for sure.
When you look back on some of the kind of guest starring roles that you've done, it's like, what are some of the fun sets that you found, like fun roles to play? Like you've been on, Once Upon a Time as Ariel, you were on How I Met Your Mother. Like you've been, you've touched a lot of epic and cultural shows. It's like, when you look back on that, what does that look like for you?
I love visiting. I was actually just talking about that the other day. I'm like, oh, I have some time in my schedule. Maybe what's a fun show right now that's like shooting? I love going to see other people work or visiting friends' shows. Once Upon a Time was so great because, playing a Disney princess, probably wasn't in the cards for me necessarily because, again, I don't sing. I started that show literally 10 weeks after I had my first baby. So getting into like a seashell bikini was horrifying. But I also that show really changed so much for me, and that, I kind of gave it all to God. I was like, okay, this is who I am. I just had a baby, and here is my pearl seashell bra. I didn't have a belly button for the first like season because I was in some sort of like spank suit essentially. But I was like, belly buttons I don't even know if mermaids have belly buttons. And so if anybody wants to write in, they can pick, they can pick that bone with me. But that was a really fun show. It was also a different genre that I really enjoy, but I love comedy, but doing a little sci-fi was a lot of fun. And, but I do enjoy, popping into How I Met Your Mother was really fun. They started on the stage right next to us on Reba. So we all kind of palled around together. And so that was really fun because I was
going to say, I rewatched How I Met Your Mother during COVID, and and your episode was like, I was like, I didn't realize she did this because it had been so long since I watched it. And I feel like, you're like the girl that everybody wants to be friends with and the one everybody wants to date. It was like the window one.
So sweet. She was really living the dream, wasn't she? And then my husband and I had just started dating, and then they ended up winning the World Series that year. And so he came back to LA with me right after the whole song and dance was done. And they kind of scheduled it where I could go through that whole experience with Nick and everything. And so he came to set. And then I remember one of the writers, Greg, was like, that Nick Swisher? I was like, yeah, that's my boyfriend. He's like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen? And then they wrote him a role. So he ended up doing the show too, which was really fun. And it was really sweet. I love that show too. Yeah, those are shows I'm really proud of being on Freaks and Geeks too. That was such a special show. I thought one of those shows that is so good, just
Yeah.
didn't, you're just like, that was so special. And everybody that I talked to about our Freaks and Geeks are like, that show was like amazing. It's so good. Why didn't it last so much longer? And it was just like, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's one of
It was
those things that
definitely
you talk
lightning in a
about.
bottle at the time. It was
It
just
was so
such a
special.
great show.
It was such a great show. And
And
all
what a
of
cast.
you have gone on to, I mean, everybody from that show has gone on to be so successful. And yeah, it was really the right people and it was a great, great idea.
Yeah,
I
it
love
was
Paul.
awesome.
He's great.
I know. Amazing.
So as you're looking forward, it's like, what type of, obviously Sweet Magnolias is doing amazing. And I can't see that, I see that being successful moving forward,
I
but
hope.
are you looking at other roles like film or anything along those lines or additional kind of
I've
one-offs?
spent the last year optioning some material, and we're in various stages of development with that. A couple of them are much further along than one that my heart is completely set on as well. But so I think that if I were to, give you my vision board, if you will, seeing those things come to fruition, and maybe getting behind the camera.
I was gonna ask
That was gonna
that.
be my
So
Yeah.
yeah, that is definitely on my bucket list and something that, if all the pieces fall in the right place, will be hopefully a part of my life in the next year or so. And so, yeah, but I've really been working a ton on developing these two different, or two, one's a book series and one's a book. And so, and they're both in really great shape. And one is like an active development. We've sold it. And then the other one, is we're going to take it out soon.
That's amazing.
That's very good.
Oh,
Do you
I'm so
read
excited for
do you
you.
read a lot?
I'm
Is
an
that
avid reader.
is
Yes.
that where you like to see
Yeah.
materials come from?
I do. And now my agency's been amazingly supportive of me in that they know sort of the stories that I want to tell, and have been helpful in sending me material. Now that I've kind of been doing it now for a minute. So that's the next step, the next phase. And they're not all things for me to star in per se, but just stories that I really want to see come to light. And yes, I am an avid reader, but I'm like the girl that reads like 4 books at a time. And the one's like self-help, one's functional medicine, one is kind of like, I don't know, maybe softcore porn, and then a romantic comedy.
Right.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Now you probably don't have time for it, but what do you like to watch? Do you have things that you watch like with your girls, that you watch with Nick, that you watch by yourselves? What kind of content do you like to look at?
We watch a lot of documentaries. We just watched Goodnight Oppie. Have you seen that?
Oh,
I haven't
yes.
seen it.
It's amazing, right?
Did you cry? Because I wept, like ugly cried. I was like, oh God, Oppie. I was really, that my girls were really into that. Yeah, I have to be honest, if our TV's on right now, it's a lot of like Bella and the Bulldogs is really big from Disney right now. Like my girls are Free Reign on Netflix is a big one in our house. So like they're watching their things, and inevitably Nick and I get sucked into them, but I'll sit down and just, I can't wait for the next season of Outlander, 1883, like all of those
Okay.
special, like kind of, limited series and stuff like that have been on my, but I tend to only have time to watch TV at night, and it's not been good for my sleep, according to my functional doctor. So I've been trying to like turn it off and play like a board game with the girls, but it's not helping my cause. Like White Lotus. I always am like watching White Lotus, but I feel almost guilty to watch that in the middle of the day. I'm like, oh God, but I got to get into it. When I travel, I tend to watch more stuff too.
Right,
Like
right.
binge.
I do
Yeah,
do you guys do this where you're like, okay, I've got to only read this week. It's like no television, no, and then you read for
100%.
a whole week and
Yeah.
get through those books. And then the next week it's like, I haven't watched anything for a week. Now I'm
Yeah.
all about television. So it's fun. No, I
Yes,
think there's just so much great content out there.
there's so much.
Yeah.
I was just in Florida and I like, but I flew down after my family and, for the long weekend. And I was like reading like all of the trades and I'm like, oh my God, like my notes list is like, watch this,
Oh yeah,
read this. And I'm like, oh, this is what travel does. Cause we don't, you just don't travel as much. You know, it's
yeah.
like we've talked about it. Like I used to go to LA all the time and I'd have like 6 hours to like binge a show or read a book, or I just don't do that anymore. You know, so it's like, how do you fit the time now to do it all? And then your list just gets longer and
Well,
there's so much on my
I
list.
had to
And I don't,
stop every time. Instead of making a book list, I was just buying them. My husband's like, why do 3
yes.
books show up on our front door every
Oh, I'm there. I am
day?
so guilty. I really am so guilty of that. But then I'll say to Nick, I'll be like, we bought a lake house. I'm like, this is for our friends and visitors in our library at our lake house. Like, we don't have a library. What are you talking about? Like,
You're
stop buying
creating
books.
one.
But I also am in the car a lot. And so it might be different for if you're in New York, that I don't know what like the commute's like, but I listen to a lot of books on tape now too, which has
Mhm.
helped me a ton.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that is great. There, but no, it's a good sign. I think there is, like you said about all the streaming services, all the different. There's so many great places. So we're the getting the benefit of that. So much great content, and I never want to miss a book that's being made into something else. I don't
I
ever want to be,
know.
oh, I didn't read that. I'm like, I must read it. I must read it now.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm like that too.
Do
I
you watch
also
it?
just love a good book.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you watch a lot of baseball?
I do watch a lot of baseball. I feel like
It's like,
I can't even believe I'm saying that. I thought I retired like 6 years ago. Um, but we still have some dear friends that are in baseball, so we watch them. Like, ah, it's a lot. It's really stressful. And then my husband, with his job, we have all these young players that are kind of getting their start, and that he has invested in emotionally, and
Mhm.
so they're at my house for dinner, or just, I mean, I know them all. I feel bad saying, we went to the match, that fun, like Tiger Woods and
Oh,
a
Yeah.
few other golfers. Yeah. It was here in Florida. And so my husband was like, let's go. And I was like, oh, that'll be a really fun date night. But it actually was really fun. And then I ran into one of the little guys, and I realized I never met him, but I had heard about him so much. And I was like, how are you good? Have you eaten tonight?
Mhm.
I mean, and Nick was like, oh my God, Joey's literally 21 years old. And I was like, well, I just want to make sure he's like all set up for spring training,
Yeah.
and I don't know what else to do. I care about these kids. So,
Well, that's your
um,
mentoring in a whole different
I was
state.
gonna say,
Yeah.
I think that's
being
just like
being a
a
mom.
very no boundaries, overbearing, terrifying, wife of Nick. That's probably where I'm at, but
I was
but
gonna
they
say,
always can have a hot meal at our house.
Exactly, and they need it. I'm sure they need it.
Yeah, no
does he
doubt.
enjoy coming on your show? It's like he was in this last episode, right? He was at the benefits thing?
Yeah, he
Oh,
did.
really?
Cheryl was so adamant about it. Yes, he's so, he's a fixture anywhere I go. So having him suit up and look so cute in his tux was so cute, and so fun. And it was just fun I think, for all of us to get to work together. But yeah, the girls and Nick, COVID definitely changed that a little bit for a moment, but now things are a little bit more open, and
Yeah.
having them around it's kind of gotten back to normal.
That's
And if the girls get the bug, are you going to encourage their
I mean, I think I'm having to put my money where my mouth is at this point. My little one started a little drama class on Saturdays at the local
okay.
theater. Um, she's very into it, and she's watches television in a different way than my older daughter does.
Mhm.
And although she watched Avril Lavigne perform last night, and she was mesmerized, and I was like, oh, okay, Sailor, what's happening here? Um, she's for sure a performer, and she's very interested in it. I just don't know that she'll be a child actor per se,
yeah.
but I am happy that she's found something that she loves, and she goes to dance classes and she's in gymnastics. And so she's just really into the whole,
like performing arts
Right,
kind of
yeah.
as a genre.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, JoAnna, it has been such a pleasure to have you on today. It's like
Thank
we were
you so
so
much.
excited. Huge girl
Oh,
crush. I own it.
Yep.
thank you. I am so grateful. This has been such a beautiful afternoon, and I love chatting with you, and I will come do it anytime.
Thank
Oh,
you so
thank you
much. We
so
can't wait to
much.
watch the new season coming
I
soon.
know.
Yes.
Excited.
Oh,
So excited.
hopefully we'll have a date soon to celebrate.
Good,
Oh,
good.
good.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
Thank
and take
you.
care.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womeninentertainment.com.